Okay, let's kick it off today. Hi, everybody. My name's Sean McDonald. Welcome to our webinar today titled How to Get Your Board on Board and Aligned. I'll be your moderator for the next 35 to 45 odd minutes. Firstly, thanks for attending today. We really appreciate the effort you've made to be here. During the session, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We'll be answering these during our session and try to get through as many of your questions as we have time for. Now, just before we do kick off, I'd just like to recognise many friends, colleagues and families in New Zealand that have been affected by the really bad cyclone here. And also we've had a Wellington earthquake this morning. Our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody there. Finally, if you stay through till the end, which we hope you do, and as customary for our webinars, we have a very special treat for you. By answering a 1-minute survey at the end, you'll go into the draw to win a beautiful gift hamper worth over $400. Now, for those that aren't too familiar with Board Pro, we're a board software provider that serve around 20,000 users around the world. We enable organizations to prepare for and run their board meetings more effectively and efficiently with really clever software, less time, and we deliver more impact and value for the organization. And as much as we are a software provider, a board software provider, part of our wider mission is to make the fundamentals of governance free and easy to implement for all organizations, especially those with resource constraints. So let me now introduce our lead speaker and panel for today. Lisa Cook is the founder and managing director of Get On Board Australia, supporting aspiring new and existing board members and boards to thrive. She has 13 plus years of experience serving on boards from a range of organisations in the private, public and not-for-profit sector in Adelaide. Kia ora to you, Lisa.
Kia ora and g'day, everyone.
Awesome. Giselle McLaughlin is a governance specialist with an eye on the strategic horizon, as well as on the ground just ahead. Giselle is all about down-to-earth governance and business advice and thrives on building sustainable business alongside healthy leaders and lives. Hello to you, Giselle.
Kia ora, Sean, and hello to everybody wherever you're dialing in from.
Brett Hurt is our co-founder and CEO here at Board Pro. Brett is a serial entrepreneur, having built several high-growth businesses over the last 20 years. And Brett brings tenacity, a strategic mindset, strong generalist business skills, and enduring curiosity to the table. Kia ora to you, Brett.
Kia ora, Sean, and hi, and welcome to everybody on today.
Thank you. Okay, so Lisa, I shall hand over to you to get us started.
Okay, thanks, Sean. It's great to be here today, everyone. We are going to talk about how to get your board on board and aligned, as Sean said. So something that we all are interested in. We've all probably had experiences where we've felt a little bit disconnected, a little bit misaligned. And really what I want to do is just focus on some fundamentals, some basics, mostly free ways of really engaging, aligning, and getting a successful board working well as a team. So I also love to start with reminding us that we end up with human beings in the boardroom. A lot of times what I've experienced is that in the boardroom, we expect board members to show up, but really what we end up with are human beings. And we need to keep this in mind, because I feel like having the mindset that we have these great, well-skilled, well-experienced individuals coming into a boardroom, coming into a new group, a new environment, a new organization, that because they are so smart and capable, we don't really have to do anything. They can get it and they'll know what to do. And that starts us all on the back foot. And really, we need to think about this human being first, this people first way of approaching the board working together, working effectively, working efficiently. Because when we think about the people stuff, everything else will work a lot better. Trust me on this one. So what we do always that I start my board conversations with is really starting with why. Why are you here? Why does this board exist? What is its role? And really that's starting with this question is going to help you understand exactly what you need to be aligning with. If you don't know why you're there in the first place, how do you know what to align everyone to? What are you all working towards? What's this bigger picture? Giselle, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Look, I think it's a very critical point because not all boards are there for the same reason. So if you think about privately owned companies, they may have a board to bring them an external view. You might have the shareholders directing the business, but they want some non-executive directors to help them to get ideas from the outside. You might be there to add credibility for investment purposes, or you might be there to actually do a very hands-on mentoring role for the CEO or general manager. So yeah, all three roles similar, but definitely not the same.
Absolutely. Brett, did you want to add something from your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. As a business, Board Pro has been investing more over the last few years. Talked to the foundation shareholders. What do we want to achieve in the next 3-year window? We've stood up a strategic plan. What are the 3 or 4 things we must do in the next 2 or 3 years? You can't really do that until you've said, well, why does the business exist? What purpose is it here for? And we've just found the ability, it's still ongoing, to drive tremendous alignment if you start from the middle of your circle, which you've most helpfully drawn there on the slide.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is something that's usually dynamic. What a business or an organization needs from its board will evolve and change over time. We've all probably experienced that recently with the pandemic that came through and how the role of the board might have shifted with that as well. So have the conversation with the board, get clear on that, know that it's not just a set and forget thing, because what you're going to get from that conversation is an understanding of why you're all there as a group, why you're there as an individual, and it's going to give you a metric or a point where you can gauge whether the board has been effective, so successful in its past operating period, whatever that is, 12 months, 6 months, etc. So always start with why, because then everything else will flow from that and be so much easier. So now that we've had those conversations, what we want to talk about now is this framework around integrate, activate, and motivate when it comes to getting your board members on board and aligned. And nicely, it comes out as an acronym, I am. So remember this, I am ready to serve this board. I am ready to be successful, and I'm ready to be part of a highly effective and efficient board as well. This can be integrated into your board if you're the chair or you're on a board right now. If you're a new board member and this isn't forthcoming on the boards that you're involved with, think of it as a program you can put together for yourself as well and help that new board to build this program out for future board members. It can be part of your legacy that you leave for this board. So our first step on our journey of getting our board on board and aligned is around integrating. So we're taking these individuals and we're shoving them in this group, and we want this to work really well. What are some things that we're going to do? There's 3 things. Obviously, there's way more than 3 things you can do, but we're going to focus on these top 3. Of course, is your induction and your onboarding program. So what does this entail? There's a wealth of resources available that can help you to put together a fit for purpose program that's really going to help the board member. So think of a new board member, or you can run it for the existing board members to really get them adequately embedded into the organization so they can start adding value back to the board and back to that organization and group. Giselle.
Yeah, I wanted to put a plug in here for Board Pro. Some of you will know that I'm not only very supportive of Board Pro, but I'm a shareholder. I'd just like to make that clear, a very minor shareholder. So I just want to say how easy Board Pro makes induction, because you can have your document library and sharing information becomes incredibly easy, and even putting the program in one place is very easy. So that's something I've used frequently, and I think it's extremely helpful.
That's great to add. Thanks, Giselle. So you can use that. You can use other methods and mechanisms. If you're not yet a Board Pro subscriber, of course, we highly recommend that. But really, your induction onboarding program is also going to help set the tone for this board member's involvement going forward. So think of that as well. It's really reflective of how the board sees itself and how seriously they take their role in this context. So really think, is this reflective of who we are, how we do things, and how we want this board member to operate in the future? And if you are putting together a new induction or onboarding program, maybe think of running the existing board members through all of it or parts of it, if that makes sense as well. Secondly, give this new board member a board buddy. And a board buddy is just someone else on the board who is like a bit of a mentor to this new board member. And really, that's going to help the new board member have someone that they can turn to either during the meeting or afterwards or before to get this added context around the issues that are being discussed. What is the history here? What is the political environment here? What's going on? And what do all these acronyms mean? So you want someone that, so they're not constantly disturbing the whole meeting, asking these questions and frustrating everyone that they're asking stuff that, oh, we already know this. But if they do, if people ask those questions, do not be annoyed with them.
We have a question that's come in, Lisa. Whose role is it to undertake board inductions? Is it the CEO, chairperson, or board member, or does it not matter?
I think it matters that the chair is encouraging this process to be done. It's not like you'll need, from my experience, one person hand-holding an individual through the steps. You, of course, need someone who drives it, and this may be the thinking of my experiences, it's been like the board secretary, the company secretary that's given that new member the access and sort of the checklist that they need to work with. If they're meeting with the CEO and meeting with other staff, which they most likely will, that they're setting up those meeting dates, whether it's face-to-face or Zoom or whatever, just making sure all those accesses and permissions are granted and that this new board member is working through. So in a way, it's all of those people's responsibilities. Ultimately, it's yours as the new board member that you're getting the information you need to be able to contribute in the boardroom. So think of that. Brett, you have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to just reinforce what you said about the chair, Lisa. So in a way, it's no different when you bring someone into your business. If you brought a new staff member in, the manager would be responsible for inducting them and setting the tone. So I think it's really critical that the chair shows leadership with bringing each new board member in. I've seen quite a bit of dysfunction in boards over the years, and it really does sit with the chair as the only person in a way. The board collectively deals with those behaviours or anyone that's struggling. So I endorse what you say, the chair must show leadership and should just lead the way, getting the board functioning well, which includes onboarding this new member.
Giselle, you had a comment, Giselle?
I did. I want to just take us back to the board buddy concept and share a small story. So I joined a board, which turned out to be quite a complex organization, and I was given a board buddy. And my experience wasn't very positive with that board buddy because they didn't have clear expectations of what their role was. They thought they were just there to answer questions if I had any. And of course, you don't want to have too many questions. I actually had a lot, but they didn't really see the role as setting me up for success. It was very minimal was their approach. I think that the chair had not set clear expectations for the buddy to actually have an ongoing involvement and help me through that first 2 or 3 months. Yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
Interesting. Awesome. Thanks, Giselle.
Thank you, Giselle. And that comes to point 3 too, but I'll jump back to point 2, is this chair connection. We've mentioned the chair, and really the chair must proactively reach out and engage one-on-one with each board member, but in particular, the new board member as well, really getting to understand the person as a whole, because all of our lives are bought to the boardroom with us, and they all impact and influence how we perform on the day or how we prepare and all other factors as well. It's really valuable for the chair to spend this time getting to understand and know each board member, because it will come in handy further down the line, especially when we come back to motivate. So number 3 here is clear expectations. Giselle's already alluded to this. Clear expectations for each role in the boardroom, for each board member, and then for each board member that has a particular role, chair, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, whatever other roles you have in your context. Have a position description for each of them. And I know that sounds overkill, but it will really help those board members to understand what they need to be doing, what's expected of them, and how do they deem that they're successful in their role and that they're doing a good job if they've got nothing to point back to. Brett.
Yeah, look, it also gives the opportunity for the other board members to know the expectation of the incoming board member or someone with a committee role. My observation is that the boards I've seen 20 or 30 odd board members over the years, it is often very ad hoc, and people don't do this upfront work of setting expectations, but then it flushes out in behaviours and friction and dysfunction, and then people have got to deal with it. It just seems so much easier to, as we've begun to do that more upfront, it just deals with the problems at the front end before they even exist. So yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brett. A question in the box: is it common to have a refresher induction for the whole board if there's a combination of long-standing and new board members? I'm not sure if it's common, but that sounds like a great idea. Make your own rules, feel like doing this, whatever helps people feel integrated and involved with that board and organization. I think that's a great idea. Now let's talk about activating. How do we switch on these fantastic board members that we've spent time getting in and spent time integrating them? Of course, leverage them, leverage their expertise, leverage their diversity, what they bring to the boardroom, that what I call often is your unique value proposition, but that bucket of attributes that we all have that go beyond our day job, our professional career, that really add value to a group who's put together for the purpose that a board is usually put together through. And really, this is through simple ways of obviously inviting them to contribute to the conversations during the board meetings. But beyond that, there's committees, there's portfolio roles. These are 2 common ways that we see boards manage the work of the board. You can also engage them on more in-depth issues that may need their specialist recommendations or thoughts on, and really leveraging their sort of advice. They may not be giving advice in the pure sense, but asking for their expert opinion on certain issues. And they also could be working internally with certain staff members and through supporting them in projects that may be going on, or just mentoring them, giving that more senior expertise, oversight and overview of what they're doing in that role. But if that's a lot of extra work for those board members, and if that's what you're bringing board members in for, you need to be clear that is their expectation. So in that expectation conversation, position descriptions, you may want to include it in there as well.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
How do you measure the effectiveness of your board members and ensure that they're contributing meaningfully to the organization's success?
Yeah, I think it comes back to why you're there. What is the role of the board? How does that fit in with the organization? So there's not one right answer here. It's what makes sense for your organization. That's why you need to have that conversation and work that out. What does success look like for this board in this organization at this point in time? Because that will change, that will be dynamic, and that could get thrown out the window at any time if there's a crisis that emerges. So really, I need to put the question back to you, is to go away and work with your board in setting that, because then in 12 months' time or whatever it is, you'll look back and say, hey guys, did we do a good job? And then if you go, did we know what a good job was 12 months ago when we set out? If you don't have an answer to that question, how do you know? You could probably get a vibe, but that's not good. Giselle?
Yeah, nice. I like it. My formal answer was going to be board evaluation, but of course, context first. I like really that approach, Lisa.
Yeah. The irony is the board can choose whatever it wants to define. Is it doing a good job, and then measure itself against its own self-imposed metrics? Then you're always doing a good job, right? Yeah, you need to think about this at the beginning. So let's jump back to activating. Ask your board members how they work best. Do they need high touch, high communication, or do they just need the right tools and are left to their own devices? How do they work best when preparing for board meetings? Do they need their information a whole week in advance? Always recommend that, so that they have time to read and digest and ponder and come up with the insights and the good questions you want them to be asking and bringing to the conversation in the boardroom. Giselle?
I was going to say it's more important than ever that we do this, as we're trying to make boardrooms more diverse and potentially having people with different learning styles, working styles, perhaps some issues that will make reading the board pack not the right way for that person, and we actually need to be more flexible in that. And recently I've been talking to somebody about this. So they had a board member who did have particular needs, and their working style was that they were not prepared to do working lunches through a board meeting. Very clear. There was a particular reason for it, that they had to have that break time and have some fresh air. And I thought that was really interesting. Such a small thing, but being open to asking people came up with a very interesting answer. So yeah, I just want to endorse the importance of that.
Love that too. And the time of day that you choose to meet as well. Make that something that's reviewed at least every 12 months. And if you're struggling to get a certain cohort of individuals in your board, think about maybe it's the time you're meeting that's making it really prohibitive for them to come forward. So involve them in how the board does their work, does the work of the board, as well as how they work best as an individual. Thirdly, is invite your board members out. How often have we all been on a board and there's all this stuff going on externally and the board members aren't invited or aren't considered as wanting to participate because we're already asking so much of them, and I'd hate to burden, which is really noble and appreciated, but we really want to get involved. We want to see the organization doing its work, however that makes sense, whether it's at events or the business is operating. Maybe we just want to go and spend some time there, seeing how it all works, seeing the coalface of the organization. The benefit of this is that board members will really understand why they're all there. So what is this organization we're supporting when we never get to see it in action? So that's a great thing for motivation. And it's also going to help broaden the perspective that they bring into the boardroom and help board members make better decisions, because they will get to connect what they're deciding on with the real world. And meeting customers and clients is such a valuable thing as well for board members. Brett.
Hey, Lisa, question for you. You're talking a lot about process. So actually being purposeful about the process of the board and bringing people into that. How do you find, have you seen resistance? Have you got any tips for actually implementing this? When you raise this, do boards go, oh, this is common sense. Why didn't we do this years ago? Can you share?
The advice is always like knowing and doing are sort of two different things, right? And what may work as a general sense and what may work in one context may not work in others. There may be reasons that you can't engage the board. Think about in client services. Maybe you're working for a not-for-profit that works with vulnerable individuals. Of course, the board will generally not go and sit in on those and things with that. So it does need that sort of understanding of the context that you're working in. But really, I feel like, Brett, this would be a board conversation. What do we want to do? What would we find value in? And if you are getting pushback, I'm thinking maybe the CEO would feel a bit like their turf is getting stepped on, to again set these expectations around, as a board member, when you're out externally away from the board, what is your role? What do we want you doing and not doing? Of course, you're not there to tell people how to do their job. You're not there to point out mistakes and things like that. You are just there as an observer and maybe to ask a question or two. But be aware also that if you're spending time with staff members and they know you're a board member, obviously, that's going to create a really unusual dynamic, and just be sensitive to that as well. But Brett, does that help answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And I'm thinking of Giselle saying, oh gosh, it's just change management. Someone on the board has to be brave, if it's not the chair, to drive these conversations, get it underway.
Yeah.
Giselle, you had a comment?
Yeah, I've got a tool for people. So it's something I have used, but which I love. I haven't used it as much as I'd like to. But there's a person called Grant McDonald who's based in the USA who has a website called Governing Good, which is facing the for-purpose organizations. It's not so much about commercial, but he has a really great tool, which I thought people might like. And it's called, let me just pull it up, Getting to Know One Another, the board exercise. And so he asks people to fill it in, and then you circulate these. So the questions I would like other board members to ask me.
Wow, nice.
What I would like to know about others on the board, and you actually can have that being very general, about each person, what's their family situation or where are they based or whatever. But also you could make it very specific. I'd like to know more about this person who joins the board for this reason. I'd like to know more about them. And it's got some examples of topics: family roots, siblings, places you have lived, importance of relationships, and even pets, introversion, extroversion, or another personality trait, hobbies and passions outside of work, food-based things, and an unusual life event. I think there's a really nice range of topics that, if used, is asking for the question to be added to the notes. I think the best thing is just to include the link to this website, which is really useful.
Will you post that link through, Giselle?
Yeah, I will.
Lovely.
That's such a great segue to our motivate section. Is the first point, knowing the board members. And particularly we focus in on the chair. As I mentioned in that first one, the integrate one, the chair really does have to build and maintain this one-to-one relationship with each of the board members. It's going to make that context that you're in the boardroom as a board member, as a chair, that whole relationship dynamic work a whole lot better if you do have this relationship that's bigger than just you seeing them face to face at the board meeting. And the one area that it's really going to help is when things are going on with that board member and you need to have that conversation with them. And that's hard if you don't have that rapport, if you don't have that relationship bucket filled with good things, with positive things, if you then need to pull them into line or have this critical conversation with them for whatever reason. But also the board members knowing the other board members. As Giselle said, there's great tools out there that can enable this conversation to happen. It's a little bit fun. Boards should be enjoyable. They should have a little bit of fun in them, which works well with number 2 as well, which is around date the board, which is spending time together as a group away from the work of the board, away from the boardroom. You may even want to do the exercise Giselle was talking about and share it all over dinner or lunch before or after the board meeting, however you run yourself, or just do a special board retreat, even if it's dinner out somewhere for a few hours, and do something like this is a really nice way to understand the person behind the board member, because their motivations, their reason for being there, what they're trying to accomplish is really good information for you to know so that you can overlay that to that board members' decisions and conversations and the things that they're doing in the boardroom. Giselle.
Thanks, Lisa. So I thought I'd share a way that I actually do that. I've never called it dating before, so that's going to keep me going. We, in the board that I'm chairing at the moment, we have formal board meetings every 2 months. But in between, so we stay connected, we have a 1 hour online meeting called Director Connector. And that is working really well to just stay connected with each other, not lose awareness, if you like, of what's going on in other people's lives, but also I use a little bit to road test a few things, sow the seeds of ideas that we might be discussing in the time ahead, but there's no formal papers or anything like that. And the other thing from a management perspective is we can use that time if we need to make a decision. So it's booked, which is helpful, but yeah, so that's just an idea.
Love that.
Thanks,
Thank you for sharing. And thirdly, here, I really want to encourage a great motivation tool, which is recognizing and celebrating success. Success of the organization, success in the board, however success is deemed and described and defined by your organization, by your board. What we don't spend enough time doing in the boardroom is reflecting and recognizing and celebrating on the great work that we've done, that we've contributed to over the past whatever period of time. I'll use 12 months because we all work to a financial year. So really bringing that to the forefront in the boardroom is really going to help those board members to get a real sense of meaning behind their work, meaning behind all the crappy decisions that you have to make, the dry conversations that you're having around risk management or anything like that, and all of the hours that you put into it. It really does help you to see that. And we don't get a lot of oversight of that in the boardroom. And so if we can do something to help celebrate the successes that we've had, it just really will affect that motivation of the board members.
Lisa, I have another question, if you don't mind.
Yes. Go for it.
What methods have you used, or the team, this is open to the team as well, to assess the level of alignment amongst the board members? And what insights have you gained from those assessments?
Brett or Giselle, would you like to?
I'll throw something in controversial. I haven't over the years tended very often seen boards that wanted to do assessments. I've tended to be involved in shareholder-owned, shareholder investors who sit on board. So I've always found it a little bit of a struggle to encourage people to do that. Not always, but quite often. I'm sure that's something for Giselle to pivot off.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. So yeah, you do get the odd board, unusual, but also occasional, who say, yeah, we really want to do this. We really value the evaluation process. We're hungry for continuous improvement. Mostly it's that time of the year again, or it's that time of the 3 years and we've got it on our list, so we've got to get it done. The real generation of motivation and readiness from those surveys is from the outcomes being discussed properly. And I think there's an element of boards really not having that as a good experience. If it's not handled well, it can detract from their motivation, that they think, oh, what was the point? That was a big waste of time and money. So it's the facilitated, neutral, safe but provocative hands to make that a good experience and make people want to do it again.
Excellent. Thank you.
The last thing I wanted to add, how can you tell really shorthand if your board is aligned, is around your attendance. If people feel disengaged, don't feel like they really know what they're doing or why, they're going to attend less than others who do feel more engaged, because it just won't be a priority, because why am I spending all this time? The other thing that's going to influence that as well is, what does the chair do when there's board members who are misbehaving? So if there's no repercussions behind someone who's chronically not attending the board meeting, why am I bothering then? If John can have 6 months off in a row and not be on an official leave of absence and the chair still doesn't do anything, why am I working? So think about that as well. I hope that helps to answer the question, Sean.
Yeah, no, thank you. Excellent.
Perfect. Perfect. So I want to draw everyone's attention to the content today that we covered is reflective in this white paper that you'll all receive after this webinar. I encourage you to read through this, refresh what you heard in today's webinar, use them together, watch the replay, go through, make your own notes, add in your own flavor, and use the checklist that we've included at the back of this white paper in your own board and see what a difference it can make. And really feel free to be creative, find ways of doing these things that really make sense for your context, for your board, for your organization. And that will really help you to end up with an aligned board full of people, full of individuals who are on board, engaged, and doing great work.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lisa. Any last comments from you, Brett, Giselle?
Yeah, I'll leap in and give the last word to Giselle. I really endorse that white paper. I think it's a superb piece of writing that's very pragmatic and human-centered and easy to apply. It's not academic or overly theoretical. So I think Lisa's done a great piece of work there.
Thank you.
100% agree. And look, I just wanted to say that you've got me thinking, because this idea of attendance, and there's a really interesting comment in the comments around disengagement from being personally present, being another little indicator. This idea of having a sort of a health check or a barometer, I think is a great one. And I wonder if that might be, Sean, an idea for another webinar in the months ahead around taking the temperature of your board.
Good idea, Giselle.
I really like it. So yeah, thanks, Lisa, for the work you put in and for sharing your framework with the world. It's been really helpful for me. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
So please feel free to connect with the team on LinkedIn from the information you've got on your screen here. I'm sure they'll look forward to your connection. And if you'd like to be put in touch directly with Lisa or Giselle for their expertise, please indicate your interest on the survey at the end of the webinar as you exit. Now, on screen here is the list of webinars we have coming up. I'll draw your attention to the one on February 23rd, which is about board engagement and how to get more of it. And we've also got a really interesting topic coming up on March 16th, which is titled Ask Me. Everything about governance. It's 45 minutes. We'll have experts there on the team, and it'll be your opportunity to ask any questions you can possibly think of or would like at that particular session and have them answered by the experts. You'll receive an email from us really shortly, which will include a copy of the video today, the presentation slides, and of course the topic white paper from Lisa. And just as you leave the webinar, don't forget to complete our 1-minute survey, which will come up automatically on your screen. And you'll go into the draw to win our hamper worth $400. We'll announce the winner shortly after the webinar. Thanks again for your attendance, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the session today. Thank you, Lisa, for your expertise and input. Giselle and Brett, thank you. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar on February 23rd, everybody. Thank you very much.